Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. There's very little time allotted to all the speakers, so I'm going to get right to the point. We likely have a looming health problem on our hands with radio frequency radiation. It's called RF, and it's emitted from all wireless technologies. This includes both consumer products and infrastructure issues, everything from cell and cordless phones, cell towers, Wi-Fi internet, wireless computer systems in schools and homes, WiMAX, radio frequency ID tags, and a host of other high-tech products. The continuing unfettered use of this kind of radiation needs much closer scrutiny. People assume that these technologies are safe, but at the federal level there is almost no government research today, and most of the regulatory agencies have had their programs completely eviscerated. A whole area of important expertise is being lost just when we need it most. Almost all of the research on RF is now coming from Europe, and it's coming from Asia. We're falling far behind. No one is protected in the U.S. today from long-term, low-level exposures to RF, which is what we mostly experience. It's called electrosmog, and it's a form of energetic air pollution. One study in Europe a few years back found that the background RF in urban areas had increased by a factor of over 3,000% in just a 10-year period. Cell technology likely accounts for the rise that they measured. U.S. cities are thought to be comparable, if not higher. That, by anyone's reckoning, is an altered environment. We're essentially experimenting on people without their consent. There are exposure standards in place, but they are controversial and they're obsolete. Debate on this, by the way, is not new. It goes all the way back to World War II, when the U.S. Bureau of Ships first noticed that midshipmen developed cataracts and infertility problems near radar units. The heart of the debate is over what are called thermal versus non-thermal effects. The electromagnetic spectrum, I'm going to do a crash course in bioelectromagnetics here, is traditionally divided into ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation, which you're all familiar with, includes solar rays, X-rays, nuclear activities, things like that. It's known to have enough power to knock electrons off of cellular orbits and thereby cause genetic mutations. Those exposures, by the way, are known to be cumulative over a lifetime. But non-ionizing radiation, which includes everything from the visible light frequencies all the way down to the Earth's natural electromagnetic fields, are thought not to have enough power to do that. The non-ionizing bands have been deemed safe if they are kept under certain thresholds for tissue heating and electric shock. But that safety premise is false. Non-ionizing radiation can cause a host of biological effects below those thresholds. No one disputes thermal effects. Radio frequency radiation can and does heat tissue, just like a microwave oven. The only debate is over whether there are adverse non-thermal effects. What are they, and can they be reversed? The human anatomy, think about it for a minute, is an electrical organism. The heartbeat is electrical, brain waves are electrical, critical stages of cell division itself are electrically influenced. There's not much that happens in the human body that isn't electrical in one way or another. But the distinctions between forms of radiation may be more for the precision of the physics community than for the accuracy of biology models. Researchers are finding more and more multisystemic effects at lower intensities all the time, and these non-ionizing exposures appear to be cumulative as well. There may, in fact, be no safe threshold for low-level non-ionizing radiation, just like the National Academy of Sciences has said that there is no safe threshold for ionizing radiation. They issued a study last year that found that. The only difference may lie in specific exposure parameters that are not yet understood. The work of Drs. Henry Lai and N.P. Singh at the University of Washington in Seattle definitely points in that direction. Those researchers found both double and single-strand DNA breaks with low-level microwave exposures below heating thresholds. According to traditional theory, that is not supposed to be happening. Their work has been replicated in about 12 different studies now. All wireless devices need base stations to bounce signals. That's how it works. Concerns over the infrastructure that's needed to support all of this technology started at the federal level with the Telecommunications Act of 1996. That bill unleashed not only the whole wireless juggernaut that we appear to love so much, but it also created a kind of rolling nightmare for homeowners and local zoning commissions. Section 704 was written by lobbyists for the telecom industry, unfortunately. It was among, in fact, one of the most destructive pieces of legislation as a journalist that I've seen in my career. That clause literally eviscerated the reason we have zoning in the first place. All state statutes identify the purpose of zoning as the responsibility to protect the health, safety, and welfare of a community. But the industry knew that without taking the health piece off the table, this build-out could never occur. They knew that once local officials look at the science, they do not approve towers near residences or schools, period. The placement of towers is a very contentious issue at the local level. I'm sure that every congressional office has heard from constituents about it. Property devaluation and health concerns are always at the top of the list. Few people realize that key questions about the safety of radio frequency radiation have never been settled. Despite what anyone says, no safe level of RF has ever really been determined. Unfortunately, there is a growing segment of the population that has become hypersensitive to these exposures. People report sleeplessness, hypervigilance, rashes, concentration problems, headaches, and a range of other symptoms. People do not even have an agency to report symptoms to. In fact, most doctors do not know that these exposures should be considered as environmental factors. Low-level ambient RF is now associated with some of the fastest rising complaints in doctors' offices, including headaches and sleep disorders, asthma and allergies, autism, and a host of deadly neurotransmitter diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and ALS. There is a big disconnect with doctors when it comes to this because most of the information is contained in biophysics journals, not a place where MDs typically read. What are we doing to ourselves? And more specifically, what are we doing to other species too? RF, even at extremely low intensities, is a known active genotoxin, meaning that it can and does damage DNA and that of other species as well. We should not fool ourselves. This is not an environmental freebie. Within the last 10 years, we have completely altered the electromagnetic signature at the Earth's surface with power densities and signaling characteristics that simply do not exist in nature, and this is all done with a presumption of safety that should not be made. We may already be seeing the law of unintended consequences with other applications of this. Species extinctions have accelerated to a rate never seen before. There are studies that find that wildlife abandons areas when cell towers go in. There are plausible theories that say that ambient RF may play a role in a whole colony collapse of honeybees. That's a big one these days. Low-level electromagnetic fields are known to throw bees off of their natural course, navigational course. One health policy analyst that I worked with recently recognized immediately that with the big-ticket illnesses like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, and brain tumors associated with low-level RF, that wireless technology may have the ability to actually sync the healthcare system. Back in 1975, long before computers and cell phones and Wi-Fi, Dr. William Bice found severe alterations in human electroencephalograms at RF power levels that are now common in most urban areas. It was a small study using 10 human test subjects, but over a year's period of time at extremely low power levels, Bice documented the entrainment of test subjects' brain waves with the microwave bands. Reactions entailed radical changes in mood and behavior, including rage reactions. Think of that the next time that somebody flips out on an airplane or shoots up a school. Think of that entrainment. Most of the newer technologies are functioning specifically in those wave bands. There are indications that some frequencies may be unsafe at any intensity. Exposures to electromagnetic fields have been found to interact with every system of the body. This is an important point when someone argues that turning down the power is all that's required. At power densities comparable to living within 1,000 feet of a cell tower, studies now show impaired fertility, numerous cancers, links with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and ALS, immune system suppression, increased permeability of the blood-brain barrier, serotonin and melatonin suppression, and increases in free radical production. None of this is something that you want. And none of this research that I just mentioned is currently included in the FCC standards, which officially take no work after 1986 into consideration. And no regulatory agency is collecting information on what these technologies may be doing to people. There's no post-surveillance activity by any of the agencies. Collecting hazards data should not be left up to private entrepreneurs with an eye toward class action litigation, as is now the case. There needs to be immediate government oversight. Senator Leahy also had a very good bill a few years back that called for the removal of Section 704. Hopefully that bill will be resurrected as it goes right to the heart of the matter regarding states' rights and citizen protection. In the meantime, there is an RF interagency work group with representatives from FCC, EPA, FDA, OSHA, NTIA, NIOSH, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They said that the FCC standards are dosimetry-based, not biologically based. That's an important point. That means that the standards are written more for how to make the systems work than for the biology systems in its path. That's you and me and every other living thing. But as the professionals who help write the legislation, you have an ethical obligation to get this one right. Constituents back home are really relying on you, as are the regulatory agencies, and I thank you.
Thank you. Just for the benefit of people who aren't fully aware, in what walks of life nowadays could you expect to encounter microwaves?
Microwaves are used instead of radio waves for all communication systems. Your mobile telephone or cell phone uses microwaves. The microwave towers are almost on every street corner. Along the motorway, you have the emergency services, microwave transmitters.
Yeah.
The microwaves are now everywhere. And microwaves succeeded radio waves because microwaves will penetrate buildings, that they will go through concrete, brick, anything, whereas radio waves won't. You need an aerial on the roof for radio waves, but for microwaves you don't. They will just go straight through your house. And of course what people don't understand is if they're going straight through your house, they're also going straight through you.
And is that dangerous? We're told by the government that they're safe. Is there scientific proof to show that they're not safe?
There are some 8,300 papers, to my knowledge, going back to 1971, where it was proven in government documents that low-level microwaves will cause injury. The main symptom for microwave sickness, it is usually a suppression of the immune system first, followed by neurological problems where the brain is being affected, depression, suicidal tendencies. You will have more colds, more coughs, longer colds, longer coughs. And then at the other end of the line, if you are unfortunate, lymphoblastic leukemia or something in that area. It affects, in order of people, it is always the embryo and children who are affected most seriously and first, followed by women, without being sexist, because they have very complicated hormonal systems that are affected by microwave technology. Then usually the sick and the elderly, and finally fit young men. So there is in fact an established pattern for microwave sickness.
And you mentioned cancers. Are we seeing an increase in the number of cancers?
Oh yes,
nowadays?
and going back to your previous question, there is absolute proof. There are, to my knowledge, to date, there are 4 High Court judgments proving that low-level microwaves will cause cancer. There are 12 epidemiological studies showing that people who live around transmitters, particularly within 500 meters, will get more cancer, more neurological and psychiatric illnesses than people who don't. And there are, to my knowledge, 20 if you count my latest one, there are 19 published legal judgments, not high courts, but legal judgments from mayors, councils, magistrates, ordering transmitters to be taken down, where it is believed that they have caused cancer. to the local population. So there is lots of proof, and two of the epidemiological studies, and by that I mean, for anyone who's not sure of the word, a study for about 10 years, studying all of the doctors' records, all of the populations. Two of them were carried out by the industry itself on its own product, and its own conclusion was that these microwaves can cause cancer. So there is plenty of proof, government proof, legal proof, research proof. There is enough proof as to win high court cases, and people are.
Can I just clarify there? The industry's own research has shown that their product, mobile phones, Wi-Fi, transmitters, cause cancer.
Oh, absolutely. It's the most famous one was the ECLOG, known as the ECLOG report, and their conclusion, it was carried out by T-Mobile, and their conclusion was that these microwaves can trigger the cancer promoters and cancer initiators in the body. And the industry's, one of the industry's other research projects showed that microwaves affected children to the point where children would lose sleep, because they can activate the brain. The microwaves can accelerate and activate the brain. And children would lose sleep. And published research in Scientific American Mind actually shows that when children lose sleep, they can become depressed and suicidal very, very quickly. In fact, I can tell you one story, if I may.
Yes, please.
When I was in South Africa speaking, a teacher of 30 years, and this is on the internet, a teacher of 30 years was the speaker behind me. And he said that in South Africa, he said childhood suicides were unknown. Misbehaviour to the extent of severe aggression was unknown in South Africa. And he said as soon as the transmitter went up near his school, they started to have psychiatric problems with the children. And he said, today, he said, all of my children, all 30 in my class, are now on Ritalin for poor behaviour. The whole class is on Ritalin.
That's incredible.
Absolutely.
I'm almost speechless. So we have the industry admitting that their technology is causing disease.
Cancer.
We're
And
seeing,
illnesses, yes.
we're seeing children being effective in hyperactivity.
Yes.
Why then do we still have this technology? What's stopping it being removed?
The industry is believed to be earning some 3 trillion United States dollars a year. $3,000 billion a year. And it is my opinion, I will have an opinion because it protects you legally, it is my opinion that when you have that amount of money coming in, I mean, just imagine on a daily basis how much is flowing in.
Yeah.
You have the ability to not only hire Land Rovers full of top lawyers who can argue cases for you, you can buy governments and you can threaten people with all sorts of things because you have so much power. And the allies of the industry are the secret services of the governments, hence the governments. Because with this technology, not only can the secret services of any country listen to every single thing you are saying through your cell phone, but they can also follow everywhere you go. So they know everywhere you go and everything you are saying, and they can monitor the words of every single meeting that you sit down at.
You're not seriously telling me that my government is following everybody's movements?
They have the ability to. I do know that every single phone call is recorded and logged.
Every phone call?
Every single mobile phone call is recorded. Every single one. They have, whether they are interested in you, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whether they want you followed, I don't know. But they have the ability to do it. So if you have, let's just say you have people who legally and rightfully oppose government policy, like me.
Yeah.
What they can do is they can have everywhere you go followed, every single phone call recorded, they can monitor everybody you talk to, so they will know your whole operation, which gives them an advantage if they want to clamp down on you.
Hi, I'm Austin Lamont and I'm 14 years old. I go to Mountain View School. I've been suffering weird headaches and dizziness and displacement. Like, it feels like my head is like there's a lot of pressure in my head and it's like repulsing like this. And I just feel like displaced, and then when I'm not there, nothing happens. So, and like I get really like weak, and like it's hard to hold a pencil too, and I can't think straight.
Starting this year at Mountain View, I've been getting a lot of headaches and it's been making me really dizzy, and like it feels like I can't concentrate and you feel like you're not really there. It's hard to explain.
The thing that concerned us was that she always got better when she got home, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. We got her eyes checked and found out that wasn't it, and actually had everything checked and found out that wasn't it. And she's still, to this day, when she goes to class, probably about 4 out of the 5 days that she's there, she's coming home with a headache. And I mean significant headache where she has to take Tylenol or Advil.
We've read these studies that show that living within 300 or 400 meters of a cell phone tower can increase your chance of all kinds of ailments, headaches, dizziness, even cancer and leukemia. What if you measured that? And then what about at our school? Could you measure what the microwaves are at our school where the kids are sitting every day? Even if you measured outside of the windows, right where the kids are sitting in the kindergarten class, could you detect microwaves?
This is a true story about an 83-year-old woman who lost some of her hearing from cell tower radiation. Mary Gerard, a retired accountant of Seattle, Washington, said, "I'm 83 years old. I've had good hearing all my life. I recently suffered a drastic change in my hearing soon after I parked my car in a grocery store parking lot to wait for a friend. While sitting in the lot, I noticed a cell tower with lots of antennas about 100 feet from my car. My friend forgot to show up, although I waited for over an hour. After that day, I found it difficult to clearly understand what people were saying, and my hearing has progressively gotten worse. Later, an acquaintance with an EMF detector showed me that the radiation from that cell tower activates her detector in a very loud way. A cell tower radiation can so radically affect the microwave measuring device, I'm wondering what it might have done to my hearing." Here's another true story of a man on YouTube who became so sick living near 2 cell towers he was forced to move. He says, "I developed a host of bizarre symptoms, including insomnia, fatigue, inability to concentrate or remember things, a weakened immune system, swollen lymph nodes, chronic diarrhea, nausea, anxiety attacks, loss of appetite, and rapid weight loss. It took me 6 months before I was even able to imagine the cause. When I removed myself from this place and found a log house up in the mountains with no TV, cell phone coverage, 50% of my symptoms disappeared within 24 hours. It took another 2 months before I was able to get off sleeping pills, and another 4 months for my body to be about 80% better. I had what is conventionally called chronic fatigue syndrome. However, the symptoms are more appropriately in line with what is being called microwave sickness. The research I looked at regarding how microwaves and other forms of electromagnetic radiation affect human and animal physiology and biology can perfectly explain all the symptoms and abnormalities found. Furthermore, there are numerous research studies that show that people living around these cell phone base stations start to exhibit these symptoms, and then after a few years, cancer clusters start to form. What the Wireless Association is doing and has been doing is absolutely criminal.